Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker were Christian royalty and the dazzling stars of American televangelism. They beamed a message of faith and prosperity into millions of living rooms every night.
Jim Bakker and Tammy Faye were once among the biggest stars of Christian television, reaching millions with messages of faith, hope, and salvation. But behind their public smiles, scandal and controversy were quietly building, threatening everything they had created. Now in his 80s, Jim Bakker is revisiting the past and addressing long-standing questions about Tammy Faye and their turbulent life together. What has he finally revealed after decades of speculation? And could it change how people remember one of televangelism's most controversial couples? The fall of a Christian empire. Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker once stood as towering figures in American Christian television, commanding the attention of millions with their hopeful messages and warm personalities. Yet beneath the shining surface, their empire was cracking under pressure. For years, questions swirled about the ministry's finances and the true state of affairs behind the cameras. What began as whispers quickly escalated into a full-blown scandal that would shake the foundation of one of the country's largest religious organizations. By the late 1980s, the cracks had widened into fractures. Rumors of financial mismanagement, extravagant spending, and broken promises began to dominate conversations around the ministry. The public had largely seen smiling hosts preaching faith and generosity, but investigators and journalists started digging deeper into the ministry's records. What emerged was a complex web of fundraising tactics, questionable expenses, and mounting debt that challenged the idyllic image once presented. The ministry's troubles culminated in a crisis that couldn't be contained or hidden. Public confidence faltered as more details surfaced, and loyal supporters started doubting whether their donations were truly advancing the ministry's stated goals. Behind the scenes, religious leaders debated how to respond, with some urging reform and others defending the ministry's leadership. The tension reached a breaking point when Jim Bakker resigned as head of PTL in 1987. At that moment, the once thriving television network and the ministry kind of started to wobble. And then, it was a fast decline. Leadership passed to Jerry Falwell, who soon made it known the ministry owed tens of millions of dollars, while somehow still losing money month after month. Those financial disclosures really shook people up, even ones who thought everything was going great. And as the scandal got out into the open, PTL's fall from grace looked almost like it was already written. Even with all the growing chaos, the ministry kept broadcasting, and fundraising efforts kept moving along, at least on the surface level. A lot of viewers still seemed not to know what was happening behind closed doors. They were still drawn in by the Bakkers' charismatic pull. But the pressure from media scrutiny and legal inquiries started stacking up quickly, and it became obvious that something was coming. A reckoning, soon. So it felt like the stage was being built for a legal battle, one that would drag up even deeper issues. Jim and Tammy Faye's personal lives were tied up tightly with the ministry's rise and its fall. Because they were so high profile, every misstep turned into public material. And that meant intense media focus and non-stop public speculation. Some people were sympathetic to their situation. Others treated it like a clean-cut case of greed and deception, you know. But behind the headlines, the reality was way more tangled and complicated. Over time, the Bakkers' story stopped being just one scandal and started to sound like a warning sign about faith, influence, and how thin trust can be. The complete truth behind the ministry's collapse stayed hidden for years, yet the cracks were already showing, loudly enough to shift how the public saw them. Meanwhile, in the background, questions about their legacy and those personal struggles kept lingering around, waiting for someone to finally dig into them. The unraveling of their empire was not just a financial story, but also a deeply human one, setting the stage for what came next. An inside look at the dream that once was Heritage USA and the promises made to those who believed. Behind the scenes at Heritage USA, Heritage USA was the crown jewel of Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker's ministry, envisioned as a Christian-themed resort that would serve as a beacon for families across the nation. Nestled in Fort Mill, South Carolina, The sprawling park featured hotels, theaters, shops, water attractions, and countless other amenities. It wasn't just a theme park, it was a symbol of the Bakkers' sweeping vision for spreading faith and family values through innovative means. The project quickly became a massive operation, attracting millions of visitors at its peak. Families traveled from all over the country, eager to experience this unique place where entertainment blended with religious inspiration. It was a dream that many supporters embraced wholeheartedly, viewing their donations as investments in a legacy meant to last for generations. The atmosphere was one of excitement and promise. To fuel this ambitious vision, the ministry launched a lifetime partnership program that invited donors to give at least $1,000. In exchange, supporters were promised several nights of free lodging annually at the Heritage Grand Hotel. The offer appealed to many, especially elderly couples and devoted followers who saw it as both a spiritual and practical benefit. Thousands joined, pouring millions into the ministry's coffers. However, as the cash flowed in, troubling questions started to surface. Later investigations revealed that the ministry had oversold these lifetime partnerships way beyond what the hotel could really practically accommodate. That mismatch raised serious doubts about the ministry's financial management and also made people wonder if they had intentionally been misleading donors. Supporters who put in their life savings began to worry about what actually happened to their contributions, like for real. Behind the scenes, Heritage USA's huge scale demanded a lot more than expected, and the resulting financial pressure wasn't always made clear to the public. While the Bakkers kept showcasing the park as a roaring success, inside there were growing problems, the kind that hinted the ministry was struggling just to keep up with its own bright plans. Critics then started digging harder, wondering whether the money raised was being used as promised, and honestly, it planted the seeds of distrust that stuck around. Even with whispers of financial mismanagement, the ministry kept promoting Heritage USA as a thriving hub for Christian families. Fundraising events stayed frequent, and the public-facing story stayed one of hope and growth. But behind all that grand facade, mounting debt and day-to-day operational trouble pressed on, relentlessly, like it didn't care. Security costs, maintenance bills, and administrative expenses climbed quietly, almost like background noise until it wasn't. Overall, the Heritage USA story captured the tension between faith and finance, idealism and reality, all at once. It became a tangible symbol of Jim and Tammy Faye's dreams, yet also of the cracks that eventually fueled their downfall. What started as an ambitious project turned into a double-edged sword, and it kept calling leadership, transparency, and accountability into question. The ministry's financial problems were just one part of the controversy surrounding the Bakkers. Equally visible were the trappings of their lavish lifestyle that drew increasing public scrutiny. Lavish life and growing criticism. As the ministry expanded, Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker's lifestyle became impossible to ignore. Reports surfaced revealing ownership of multiple luxury homes, designer clothing, expensive jewelry, private airplanes, and high-end automobiles. This extravagant lifestyle contrasted sharply with the modest means of many of their devoted supporters, sparking concern and criticism. Critics questioned whether it was appropriate for a religious ministry to fund personal opulence at such a scale. News media and investigative reports began to delve deeper, highlighting patterns of spending that appeared to prioritize personal comfort over ministry goals. Government agencies took notice, reviewing financial records for evidence of inappropriate use of donations. Concerns grew over whether funds designated for charitable or ministry purposes had been diverted to cover lavish expenditures. This scrutiny intensified public skepticism about the true priorities of the Bakkers. At the same time, internal tensions within the ministry became harder to conceal. Whispers about financial mismanagement reached a crescendo as journalists exposed irregularities and questioned leadership practices. Efforts to quietly resolve controversies failed, as more evidence emerged into the public arena. The ministry's glowing public image increasingly clashed with the reality of growing debt and eroding trust. Jim and Tammy Faye's personalities and public personas played a role in this tension. Known for their warmth and dynamic presence, they inspired loyalty among many viewers. Yet their charismatic appeal was no shield against mounting criticism about their stewardship. Supporters faced a difficult choice: reconcile the beloved faces they trusted with troubling reports about misused funds and broken promises. The ministry's continued fundraising efforts appeared disconnected from the financial hardships beneath the surface. Heritage USA remained a popular destination, and television broadcasts went on, but cracks in public faith deepened. Some donors felt betrayed, while others called for reform and transparency. Religious leaders across the country debated the implications for Christian broadcasting and stewardship standards. Throughout this period, the backers grappled with the consequences of their success and the weight of public judgment. The mounting financial and ethical questions foreshadowed legal actions that would soon bring their ministry's operations to a halt. The lavish trappings that once symbolized achievement now stood as evidence in a larger unraveling. This clash between image and reality set the stage for what many considered the most dramatic chapter: the legal battle that would change everything for Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker. The legal battle and prison sentence. The collapse of the PTL ministry quickly moved from public criticism into the courtroom, marking one of the most high-profile legal battles involving televangelists in American history. Federal investigators spent months scrutinizing the organization's finances and fundraising practices, focusing on whether supporters had been promised benefits the ministry could not deliver. As evidence piled up, the case evolved into a criminal investigation involving millions of dollars raised from devoted followers. In December 1988, Jim Bakker was officially charged with multiple counts, including mail fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. The trial, held in Charlotte, North Carolina, attracted widespread attention, with reporters and onlookers closely following every development. The proceedings were grueling and emotionally fraught. Bakker struggled under the immense pressure, even requiring a brief pause in the trial to receive medical treatment for his condition. Despite interruptions, the trial pressed on for weeks. Prosecutors presented extensive financial records and testimonies demonstrating how ministry funds had been mishandled. Ultimately, the jury convicted Bakker on all 24 counts against him. The initial sentence was severe: 45 years in federal prison accompanied by a hefty financial penalty, shocking many observers who found the punishment unusually harsh for financial crimes. Bakker appealed the sentence, claiming that procedural miscues sort of twisted the whole outcome, and that the punishment got way harsher because of it. A federal appeals court nodded along, saying some of the comments should not have been included in the sentencing mix. That caused a reduction in his prison time, and after additional adjustments, Jim Bakker ended up serving almost 5 years, then was released on parole in 1994. While Jim was dealing with incarceration, Tammy Faye's life pivoted in her own fashion. She was never charged with crimes, but the ministry's collapse hit her hard, and the scandal afterward left a lingering weight. The couple split in 1992. Later on, Tammy Faye remarried, this time to contractor Roe Messner. Even though everything looked different overnight, she slowly reassembled her public persona, leaning on compassion plus outreach toward communities that are often left on the margins. One of the most remembered things about Tammy Faye was a very plain-spoken television interview with a minister who had been diagnosed with AIDS during a period when fear and stigma were everywhere around that illness. She told viewers to answer with empathy instead of judgment, and many people viewed that approach as unusually bold, even ahead of its time. Because she chose to connect with individuals others avoided, her public image began to soften, and multiple groups came to admire her. Even with so many personal and public storms, Tammy Faye stayed anchored to her faith. In her final days, while fighting colon cancer, she still appeared on national television and spoke about trusting God's plan. when she died in 2007 at 65. It closed a chapter that carried huge triumph alongside serious hardship, and it left behind a kind of legacy that kept inspiring people. The legal consequences and personal upheavals marked a turning point, but they also set in motion new beginnings for both Jim and Tammy Faye, as their lives after the ministry unfolded in unexpected ways. Tammy Faye's redemption and legacy. Tammy Faye Messner's journey did not end with the fall of PTL. She emerged from the shadows of scandal with a renewed focus on kindness and resilience that touched many hearts. Known as much for her heartfelt empathy as for her signature makeup and flamboyant style, Tammy Faye worked to reshape her public image, becoming a symbol of compassion in an often harsh world. Her willingness to embrace those rejected by society, particularly the LGBTQ community and people living with AIDS, was revolutionary. At a time when many within her world frowned upon such outreach, she chose to use her platform to promote love and understanding. This courageous stance earned her respect beyond religious circles and contributed to a more nuanced view of her legacy. Tammy Faye's personal struggles also included battles with addiction. Following her pneumonia illness in 1987, doctors discovered she had developed a dependency on Ativan, prescribed initially to help with a fear of flying. Recognizing the need for help, she entered the Betty Ford Clinic, a challenging but ultimately transformative experience that strengthened her resolve and brought her family closer. Public and media attention continued to follow Tammy Faye as she navigated life after PTL. Though her name remained associated with controversy, she refused to be defined solely by scandal. Instead, she embraced opportunities to speak on resilience and recovery, sharing lessons learned from hardship and loss with honesty and warmth. Her health decline in the mid-1990s added a poignant note to her story. Despite battling colon cancer that later spread, Tammy Faye remained open about her faith and outlook on life. Her final televised interview in 2007 showed a woman at peace, ready to trust God with whatever lay ahead, embodying the faith that had been central throughout her life. Beyond the headlines, many remember Tammy Faye as a figure of hope and acceptance who stood boldly for those often overlooked. Her kindness and vibrant spirit left a lasting imprint that continues to inspire discussions about faith, forgiveness, and human dignity. Many fans and observers believe her true legacy goes far beyond the ministry's dramatic collapse. Tammy Faye's life story challenges simplistic judgments, revealing a woman of depth who balanced public scrutiny with private perseverance. Even after tragedy and loss, she showed an extraordinary capacity for empathy and renewal. Her journey offers a reminder that redemption can come in many forms. As her story intertwines with Jim Bakker's ongoing path, the question remains, how would Jim confront his own future after everything had fallen apart? The answer unfolds in the next chapter of their extraordinary lives. Jim Bakker's return and new controversies. After serving nearly 5 years in prison, Jim Bakker returned to public life instead of disappearing from the spotlight. From Blue Eye, Missouri, he launched a new ministry focused on biblical prophecy, emergency preparedness, and surviving uncertain times. Long-term food supplies and preparedness products became a major part of his message, attracting followers who were concerned about future crises. While many supporters welcomed his return, critics questioned whether he had truly changed. Some argued that his new ministry still blurred the line between faith and commercial promotion. As a result, debates about Bakker's legacy continued long after the PTL scandal faded from the headlines. In 2021, right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, controversy came back around when Bakker started promoting a product that he called a silver solution. Government authorities pushed back, challenging his claims about how well it works. They said there wasn't any scientific proof behind what he was saying. The whole thing ended up in a legal settlement, with financial penalties and restitution involved, even though Bakker did not admit that he did anything wrong. After that, the episode kind of pulled renewed public attention, and it also brought up the usual question of responsibility. especially for religious leaders who advertise health-related products. Some followers stayed with him. In their view, Bakker was moving from good intentions, while others treated the controversy like a worrying signal about older patterns that kept showing up. Even with the criticism still hanging around, Bakker carried on broadcasting. He kept a devoted audience and kept speaking about faith, readiness, and resilience, and for many people, that message still lands during uncertain times. Still, critics say his past can't be quietly set aside, and that it should be part of the conversation about how much influence he had and how it was used. So, today, Jim Bakker's story feels like a mix of redemption and controversy. His life after PTL shows resilience, but also the return of recurring questions tied to accountability. Every new chapter adds another layer to a legacy built from exceptional success, public failure, and repeated tries at reinventing himself. Whether someone reads it as a cautionary tale or a sign of perseverance, Bakker's journey keeps fueling debate about faith, forgiveness, and whether real change can happen. Jim Bakker's life is a powerful lesson about faith, failure, and the ongoing struggle to find redemption in the public eye. His story shows how even the most dramatic falls can lead to new beginnings, though not without fresh challenges. If you found this glimpse into his journey revealing, please like and subscribe for more stories that explore the complex lives behind the headlines. Your support helps bring these real stories to light. And before you go, click the next video appearing on your screen. You may be surprised by the story waiting there.